Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB. Today in the arena, we're going to be reviewing the cards for Historic Anthology 6, and we're going to be checking them out with a mind and an eye for Historic Brawl and, of course, the Historic format. This injection of new cards has been needed in Historic as it's become just a wretched den of villainy and scum and whatever they say in the Star Wars thing. Lots of Arclight Phoenix, lots of Cat Oven, not a lot of tremendous variety. So can it be shaken up with the Historic Anthology 6? And for me, my favorite part is seeing what now is introduced to the Historic Brawl format. But before we get into that, I'm going to give a quick bit of love plug. It's kind of sponsored, not sponsored. I'm talking about Herman Miller Gaming, and they sent me a chair. I've been in it for a little while now, and it's right here. You guys might have noticed the big clutch Rakdos chair has vanished. It had the big headrest and things like that. It's been replaced by the Herman Miller Gaming Embody chair, and I've got some sweet pictures for you here as well. So just a second. We'll go over here. We do this thing. There it is. And it's kind of a funny story. I actually received this several weeks ago. And I mean, the Herman Miller, the push is like, it's good for your back. It's good for your back. You know, everything about it is, it's designed to be a chair that really saves your back. And it was recommended to me first many years ago. And I looked at it and said I couldn't afford it. And I continued to hold back. And then when they talked to me about sponsorship and hooking me up with a chair, I was like, yes, please, my back would love a chair. And it has cool blue accents. It's got blue coloring on the back. So that's nice. That goes a little bit more with my color theme, a little bit more with my vibe. But when the box arrived and I was moving it into the house, they don't want me telling this story. They really don't want me telling this story. But I did not use proper lifting procedure. And tell me if this is ironic, those of you who police whether or not things are ironic or not. I hurt my back moving the box that contained the chair into my house. So I put off on recording the shout out to them for a few weeks, and then I went on vacation for a few weeks. So I put off the shout out for almost a month because I hurt my back and I couldn't tell if the chair was helping or not, because the first several days in the chair were uncomfortable, as I think they would be in any chair after I hurt my back. But now that my back is feeling fine, I'm really starting to feel the effects, and it is definitely, it's feeling really good. I'm really enjoying this chair. It's light, it moves easy. It's clear that the levers can be adjusted to fit all kinds, and I strongly recommend the Herman Miller Embody gaming chair. Yes, it's a chunk of change. So are gems in the arena. If this is in your range, I would recommend it, and I think it will take good care of your back. So that would be nice. It can also be a very nice gift for somebody who needs it, like a really, really nice gift. Probably your kid, if you really want to spoil them. And, more gems isn't always the answer. All right. Hope that was not too plugalicious, but Covert Go Shill has to eat. And I do really appreciate it. Like, it feels so comfy. Anyway, Historic Anthology 6 has arrived. It arrived while I was away. Some creators have surely already talked about it, but I haven't, and I love talking about new cards. I love talking about changes on Arena. Everything that's like new cards coming to Arena that isn't specialized alchemy cards, I'm excited to do, and I don't have a podcast anymore. So for me, I very, very much want to take some time making videos, talking to you guys just about how I feel about cards, and of course hearing from you guys in the comments of what you think of cards. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Historic Anthology 6. Even though I don't play Historic much, I definitely play a lot of Historic Brawl. I'm excited to see this. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, some of you enjoy this part, some of you hate this part. I'm going to click this button. I'm going to spend these gems. I'm going to buy this bundle. Should you buy this bundle? I cannot answer that for you. It's one of those things where the value you're getting really depends. If you are going to play Historic often and you are going to play decks that run 4 of these cards, then you should buy this bundle. I think that makes a lot of sense to everybody. But that's a very, very tiny percentage of you out there. Also, if you're just a collector who hates having to think about wild cards and you just want to have everything in your collection, you're that type of collector, which is kind of bizarre for Arena since they're not real cards, but I mean, you do you, then maybe you want to buy the bundle. If you are a Historic Brawl player, it probably makes a lot more sense to craft these one by one when you want them, because you only need 1 copy of each for Historic Brawl, and a lot of what you're paying for with the Anthology is you get 4 copies of each. So why would you do that when you can just craft 1 copy of each? And if you're a Historic player who's going to use, I would say 4 or more of these as 4-ofs in decks, and you're going to play them a lot, and I'm not talking about the lands because those are common. If they're 4 or more of the rares and you're going to run them a lot, then maybe this bundle is for you. If you're just going to play one of these cards, say you're into Chalice of the Void, if you're just going to play Chalice of the Void in a number of decks, it's probably better to just craft Chalice of the Void. I can't answer that question for you because there's so many types of people who play Arena. However, I'm going in hot. It's for the content. It's for the fam. Look at this pile of cards. All right, we're going to go down the list and talk about each of them. So grab a cold one. The Historic Anthology 6 review begins now. Those of you concerned, thank you very much. It is much cooler in my room. It has cooled off a lot in the last few days. Also, I'm working on totally changing it up. Figuring out a way to get some good not air conditioning, but make it a lot cooler in this house. And then hopefully by next year have air conditioning, central air installed in the house. And yeah, it's... Anyway, I said that the review starts now and I'm talking about home improvement. Shut up. Avacyn, Angel of Hope, 5 white, 8/8 legendary creature, flying vigilance, indestructible. Other permanents you control have indestructible. Iconic. Absolutely iconic card. The memers of the land will enjoy cards like Fall of Thran, Armageddon type effects, because this gives all your permanents indestructible. So you can do one-sided Armageddon effects, blow up all their lands, keep all yours. Board wipes, blow up all their creatures, keep all yours. This card feels here for Historic Brawl. It's a commander, for sure, and a beloved one at that. People really, really love this card. In Historic itself, you could talk about reanimating it, but that still won't save you from exile effects and a number of other issues. There might be matchups where this as a reanimator target is better than a Sarah's Emissary, but I don't think that's very likely. And this is definitely one of the cards where I'm I don't know what world exists where you actually need 4 of this from the bundle, but I've got them. But you probably don't need them. Still, I would craft this card as a one-of and definitely play with it in Historic Brawl, fit it into those Angel decks, or make it your commander and run a bunch of board wipes and Armageddon effects, and you'll have a lot of fun with Avacyn, the Angel of Hope. Now, I want the shadows. I want Archangel Avacyn. I want the shadows over Innistrad Avacyn. That is one of my favorite cards, and hopefully that will show up someday. Chalice of the Void. Ooh, this card is so nasty. XX artifact, rare. It enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Whenever a player casts a spell with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Chalice, counter that spell. You can play it for 0, and opponents cannot cast, they can cast, but you can counter for free any spell that costs 0 that hits the stack. Sometimes there's packs of negation. In Historic, it's not, the zeros aren't overwhelming. It's not a spell that costs 0, yes, it's a spell that costs 0, not a spell that was cast without paying its mana cost. So I don't think you will ever counter anything that's cast off, say, a Mizzix Mastery with this. It has to have specifically a 0 in the casting cost. So that's a pretty tough ask. You can play it for 1. That will shut down a lot. Luris, I believe, is still legal in Historic. You can turn off a ton of 1-mana cards with this on 1. So there's got to be a deck Maybe this brings mid-range back into the fold a little if there's a mid-range deck that can take off turn 2 to play Chalice on 1 to shut down a third of their opponent's deck, and then go about playing value-driven cards like, I don't know, Fable of the Mirror Breaker and stuff, and just grind the opponent down from there after turning off a third of their entire deck with one card, because there are a lot of decks out there that run a ton of cheap creatures. So Chalice of the Void is going to try to find a mid-range home. Maybe it already has. I forgot to do the historic meta review. Historic meta review. What's going on in Historic at the time that I'm making this video is that Mono Green Elves is at the highest percentage of meta in Best of 1 at 8% win rate, and Mono Red is at 6%, and both of them have 61% win rates. Then there's Selesnya decks, 2 of them, that combined is like 9%. Plenty of like Heliod Collected Company scurry-oaking stuff, I'm sure. Esper Reanimator, Sarah's Emissary type cards. Okay, that's up there. Goblins. There's a lot of aggro. There is no control. Seriously. Seriously, Historic needs a hero. Let's look at Best of 3. And in Best of 3, Izzet is far and away the most popular deck. That's kind of what I expected. That an Izzet deck built with Dragon's Rage Channeler, maybe adding the buffed you guys know, Symmetry Sage, I think it's called. Like, I would expect those decks to do very, very well in Best of 3 Historic. Appears that they do. Selesnya is right there. Rakdos is right there. Gruul Aggro is right there. Finally, a little bit of control at 3% of the Best of 3 meta. Yeah, Historic needs a hero. Maybe I'll be the hero they do or don't deserve. I don't know. You tell me. But with control needing a bit of a boost, and with everything being apparently super fast and aggressive, maybe Chalice of the Void is a good card for that. As control doesn't usually have the 1-mana spells, Chalice can just come down on turn 2 and turn off so many things. I like it. How do I review all the artifact lands? There's all these artifact lands. They're a huge percentage of this bundle, which that feels cheap. Like, I hate that. Do you guys hate that? Because what does it do? I mean, I guess if you're going to introduce these, it's like you have to introduce the whole cycle. They're from Modern Horizons 2, so we're not going to get Modern Horizons 2 introduced to the format anytime soon. So it's just, taking up so many spots in this bundle. It feels so obnoxious. On the bright side, they're commons to craft. They are artifact lands, so they go towards your artifact count. They're indestructible. They enter tapped, and they tap for 2. These will see fringe play at best, as more tapped lands is usually not the answer, but there are some artifact affinity decks that might use, like the blue-white one, the cards that are like putting a Nettle Cyst on Esper Sentinels and just flexing like that. But for the most part, it's pretty obnoxious to have these take up so many spots in this bundle. And I think they're going to see super fringe play. You really only want to run them if you have a strong artifact synergy or you blow up all lands. I think that these are mostly filler. Craft them if you need them, probably. And I mean, I guess they're common, so whatever. But they take up so much spots, I just wish they were something else. Glimpse the Unthinkable. Blue and a black sorcery, target player mills 10 cards. Rare. This is not for Historic Brawl. It might get played in Historic Brawl. I bet some people are like going to throw it in their Tasha deck, but Tasha doesn't even work the same way in Historic Brawl that it works in paper. So what am I even thinking? That maybe you'll get a creature to reanimate? I don't know. Probably not for Historic Brawl. Wouldn't recommend it. And where you can run this, like somebody's going to play this like in their Ashiok Historic Brawl deck that they have with 1 billion persistent petitioners. And I won't stop you, but is that good? Whatever. But is there a mill deck in Historic? Like a straight up, I'm going right after your deck kind of mill deck in Historic. I've got, on my screen, I've got at like 0.5% of meta, there's a Dimir mill deck. I mean, Rogues kind of does that thing, and I think they do it better because they have a tempo aggro plan, and I don't think you want this in Rogues. You didn't run Maddening Cacophony in Rogues either. This is a straight up, we're going at the deck like a burn deck approach with Rune Crab, the Snow Permanent Crab, this, and Maddening Cacophony. Can you just get somebody to 0 by turn 4? I think that it's a long shot. Those decks, especially in best of one meta, they're going to get super aggro. Looking at the state of Historic, it's super aggro. It's probably not where you want to be. But if you're one of the sickos who just likes to mill for the sake of mill, you already played this card and you don't need my advice. Go Shintai of Life's Origin. Okay, this is the mythic, one of the mythics. It is definitely a commander card. It is from the commander set, from like in case you guys only play Arena and you don't know, every time a paper set comes out now, there's also a supplemental commander set. And this was in the supplemental commander set for Neon Dynasty. It's a shrine card. Anyway, 3 and a green for a 3/4 legendary enchantment creature shrine for a Wooburg. Return target enchantment card from graveyard to battlefield. Doesn't have to be a shrine. That's kind of cool. Whenever this or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. So playing an enchantment and getting a 1/1 on a 4-mana card doesn't sound very exciting until you remember that it's a shrine. And the whole point of shrines is that they trigger off other shrines. The more shrines you have, the more triggers you get. So every little 1/1 shrine here exponentially powers up your other shrines. So in a shrine deck, this card is insanely good. In Historic Brawl, this is the shrine commander. It pushes shrines quite a bit. It's unlikely that you'll see a shrine deck at top tier, but it's always very effective in 4-player games because people just aren't prepared or don't understand how much they have to attack the shrine player until it's too late, and it becomes very overpowering very fast. In Historic Brawl, can we build shrine decks that take over the game on that level? It's kind of like an enchantment prison control deck type vibe, and I'm looking forward to trying it. But generally speaking, shrines are the tribal of like control decks. You just throw a bunch of shrines in it, and then you take over games if the opponent lets you live. That is not the play pattern I enjoy very much. It feels like, you know me and tribal play patterns. I like to cut it down to the bare necessities of win cons, and shrines is just like have a shrine, have a shrine, have a shrine. It's not quite my style, but I'll have to try it because it might be very, very good. And if you're a shrine gamer and you love the shrines, you are so happy to see this card. So get ready to see a lot more of this card in Historic Brawl. In Historic, I don't think shrines are going to be competitive anytime soon, and I don't think you have to fear this card in Historic itself. It's another one of those cards when you buy the bundle, you're like, why would I ever need 4 of this? I only need 1. Next card is also a commander card. It's kind of weird that we're trying to get historic cards in the Historic Anthology, so we're thinking of historically awesome cards from across the many years of Magic, and what we get are cards printed in the commander sets recently. Okay, but this one's good, and this is one I've built a commander deck around recently, and I played it in Command Fest Orlando, and I'll probably play it on my Worst Possible Commander show, plug, in the near future. And that's Layla the Blade Reforged, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Spirit Warrior with haste. And whenever this attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Layla. So there are so many synergies with this. Cards with flashback that you cast from the graveyard, like Faithless Looting, put a counter on Layla. Escaping a card like Ox of Agonis puts a counter on Layla. Not 8 counters, but 1 for each time that these things happen. And then also cards like Chandra, Dress to Kill, and other Chandras that exile the top card of your library for an effect. All of these can trigger Layla and put more and more counters on her, and then she does work. It's an aggressive card that also creates card advantage. And in Commander and in Historic Brawl, that goes in your command zone. Very, very strong. Does it make the cut in Historic? Does it actually make the cut in Mono Red, where you have options like Annex, Hardened in the Forge, and Goblin Chain Whirler competing with it? And I think that's really unlikely. I think if you actually believe you can afford another 3-drop in Mono Red, you can play one of these, but I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's going to make the cut in those spots. I think that Chain Whirler is always going to be a card that has a home. I think Annex is going to have a home almost always as a 4 of, because it's never bad to draw 2. You just make a whole bunch of 1/1s with it. So I don't see this card making the cut. Now, some people might be trying Boros Spirits because of Hoffrey Ghostforge, and some of you might be trying Warriors, as that's a semi-supported tribe. And if you're into those tribal elements, this card could see some play, but I don't think it's going to break the top tier of Historic anytime soon. I think it's another Historic Brawl print, to be honest. There are so many. Hiding over here is another one of those artifact lands with very cool art, I might say. Let's talk about a Phenomancer. Snake tokens, baby. This is a 2 and a black 2/2 human shaman at rare. At the beginning of each upkeep, if you control no snakes, create a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. I'm still just constantly blown away by the commander cards being printed into Arena, and it does almost feel like they're trying to tempt you with commander cards in Arena when they have so many good, just rock solid, stapley powerful cards across Magic's history that they could print instead. A Phenomancer is awesome when you have a sack outlet, like say a Yawgmoth, and then you're at a commander table with 4 players. So each upkeep, you get another 1/1 and another 1/1, and you sack it, and another 1/1 and you sack it, and another 1/1 and you sack it. Very cool. And in Historic, I don't think that's ever going to matter. You're going to want Woe Strider way more than this all of the time. I can't imagine playing this in a straight up game of Historic. In Historic Brawl, Yawgmoth's your commander. You need a lot of effects like this that just keep going, or other sacrifice effects. Corvold, sure. You'll play in a Phenomancer. You need the bodies. You want things to throw into the graveyard. A Yara is another one. So it's another Historic Brawl printing that I now own 4 of because I bought the bundle. So yeah, I think you guys can see by now how I feel about a lot of these cards. I really think that this is the Historic Brawl anthology more than it's the Historic anthology. Just kind of the way it is. All right, Phyrexian Metamorph. 3 and a Phyrexian blue for a 0/0 shapeshifter artifact creature. You may have the Metamorph enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. And yeah, awesome in Commander. Gonna be decent in Historic Brawl. Historic Brawl still has a lot of like artifacts that you want to copy and cards you want to copy. This is a very playable clone, because if you pay 2 life, it's like 3 generic mana for a clone effect, and it can copy what's on the opponent's side of things. This has some potential in Historic, but it's super meta dependent. Like, what are we copying? Why do we need multiple copies? Are we copying the opponent's thing? Why didn't we just play our own? If we're copying the opponent's thing, we're not, killing the opponent's thing, so then they get the first mover advantage. They untap, they remove our thing, they're attacking us. So I don't know where the Metamorph fits, and this is one where I would love your ideas on the Metamorph. I do think it's a great craft as a 1-up for Historic Brawl. You can play it in so many things. Sweet card in Emery. Like, Emery type Historic Brawl, you can be copying like mana rocks with it to set up your Paradox Engine combo, or you can copy the opponent's creatures so that you have some kind of defensive presence on the battlefield. So yeah, I think that this is another great Historic Brawl card that I'm not sure how it fits into Historic, but it could. The rate is decent. It's just really hard to think of the right home for your Phyrexian Metamorph. Moving on, we have the Retrofitter Foundry. It's 1 colorless. It's an artifact. It is rare. For 3 mana, you can untap it. It's open-ended, so if you have infinite mana, you can do that as much as you want. For 2 and a tap, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. 1 and a tap, sack a servo. Make a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Tap, sack a Thopter. Make a 4/4 colorless artifact construct artifact creature token. It makes a bunch of things. On its own, it's 1 mana, and then pay 2 more, 3 mana total, tap, make a servo. Then, if the servo survives, or you get a servo through other means, the next turn you can turn it into like a Thopter. And then if you're willing to untap this, put 3 in, you can untap it, then sack that Thopter to make a 4/4. It's narrow. It is a slow value engine. The juice with this card is if you can reduce the activated ability somehow, or create infinite mana. And then this card can go off and make all of the 4/4 colorless construct artifact tokens you can possibly click through before your timer runs to 0. And, there are decks where this is going to fit. There are decks that can do like endless mana type of shenanigans. They're mostly jank. If the right cards get printed so that it's not a jank card, then this card can become a 4 of playable in Historic. It just needs a shell around it that generates enough mana, or reduces activated ability cost to the amount where you can just do this over and over for free, and then this card is very good. So maybe having 4 of this isn't a disaster. And there are some decks that like definitely like Tinkerer. I call them Tinkerer decks that try to do all kinds of artifact combos in Historic Brawl. Like maybe there's probably a number of those where this can be fitting right now. I'm thinking of Joyra type decks, and I'm also trying to remember the name of one that was printed in Baldur's Gate Commander Legends. It's a Mardu commander that can sacrifice artifacts and bring things out of and make treasures, etc. But yeah, Tinkerer type decks might really enjoy this. So it's a cool little addition and something to keep in mind as a potential win con if infinite mana is just on the table a lot. Hiding over here, being very shy, is one of the stars of the show, and one of the reasons that one of the cards I think they're hoping will sell this anthology. It is Tarmogoyf, 1 and a green for a star 1+ star. So easy to say. It's a Lurgoyf, it's a mythic, and its power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards. Its toughness is equal to that number +1. This card was one of the most underrated cards in history. It got no press or buzz when it was spoiled. Early on in the format, nobody knew it was good. And then when they figured out it was good, its price skyrocketed, absolutely skyrocketed. It led to one of the most controversial moments in Pro Tour history, where a player was in their 3rd pack of a draft. They were in completely different colors, and they opened a foil Tarmogoyf, which I think at the time was worth over $100. And they were the featured drafters, so the camera was watching them. And this is supposed to be the height of competitive Magic. And they rare drafted the Tarmogoyf in like the top 8. There's like I think it was like $20,000 on the line, and they rare drafted pack 1, pick 1, the Tarmogoyf that they weren't going to play because it was, it was worth a lot. Some people will remember all the details better than me. It's been a while, and maybe you can tell the story in the comments, because I'm sure I'm getting some parts of it wrong, but there's probably also a video out there you can find. If anybody wants to link that, I'm sure some people would love to see it, because it's one of the more controversial moments. It's just straight up rare money drafting in a competitive environment. It's pretty, I always look at those and I'm just kind of amazed what happens in our world and what people get upset about, quite frankly. Now that I've told a few anecdotes about Tarmogoyf, this card went on to dominate Modern. I mean, it was like the best 2-drop in Modern for a very long time. Then it fell completely out of favor for like the past 3 or 4 years. Is it good in Historic? A lot of people have really fond memories of this card, and I think they're going to play it a lot, whether it's good or not. That's my read on Tarmogoyf. If you're one of those players who loves this card, I think getting some mythics out for this card is going to make a lot of sense for you. And if you're going to play this nonstop, heck, it might be worth the whole bundle. I haven't tried to do the conversion of what a mythic wild card is worth in gems. I don't think so. Do your own math and make your own judgment on that. It's probably better to just open a bunch of packs of something else, get all those other cards, and then craft this. But Tarmogoyf is a player, and we don't have fetch lands. We only have like Fable Passage, so you don't get like into that free land in the graveyard to start the game, but we have Thoughtseize. That's a spell that goes straight to the graveyard and puts a card from the opponent's hand into the graveyard, so that can be, a +2/+2 right there. And there are other cards like that, like Inquisition, and then you just go down the list of like the other cards that we have available. Man, could we use Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt was a great one in the Jund Tarmogoyf decks. Liliana of the Veil is another card that is missing that would go really great in Historic. Wish it had been in this anthology. Think that would have been sweet. So Tarmogoyf might still need support, but maybe there's a shell that people can find that would make this card very, very good. Tarmogoyf is, in my opinion, both the selling point of the bundle and the wild card of the bundle. So where does it fit? Will it see play? How much play will it see? What deck is it best for? These are questions I have. I'd love to read your comments on them and find out if Tarmogoyf is actually that good. My analysis, if you are on the fence about crafting Tarmogoyf, if it doesn't have that emotional resonance with you and you think it might be good, is wait and see. Sorry, Tarmogoyf. The world passed you by when a lot of the cards from Eldraine and Ikoria were released, and it might still be past you because we have all those cards in Historic still for the most part. So we'll see. All right, claim my prize. We did it. We completed today's review of the Historic Anthology 6. I am kind of amazed, as sort of a wrap-up thing here. I am very amazed at the amount of cards for this historic anthology that seem like they were planted for historic brawl as opposed to historic. And I think that it continues to show that the way that Wizards is approaching Magic is Commander and Commander type formats first, and other formats is it fair to say a distant second at this point? It might be. Like, do they really care about the historic meta compared to trying to get people who play Commander to try Arena? I mean, obviously, a great historic meta isn't going to make them as much money in the long term as getting historic players to try Arena. I think. Again, I'm not an expert on this. This is a lot of me spitting opinion on you guys, but that's the way it looks to me. And these anthologies have just more and more steered towards cards that aren't going to necessarily impact the format, but might definitely shake up Historic Brawl. I guess I missed one. They didn't show this. Interesting. The Knight of Souls Betrayal. 2 and a black. You get this rare legendary enchantment. Original Kamigawa, I think. All creatures get -1/-1. Underrated in its time in Standard, definitely underrated for years, and now it has the chance to really surprise people out of this anthology. -1/-1 is a lot. Your 2/2 being a 1/1 is half as good, but then shutting down, a number of token generating type effects like Young Pyromancer and Seasoned Pyromancer for good in enchantment form. A lot of decks are not built to remove that. It's very vicious. It's very nasty. And this card could definitely see sideboard play in Historic itself, and it's almost a Staxy type effect for Commanders. So those of you who like global effects, slowing down other people's decks, this can do very well. And there might be Commanders out there with 1 toughness like Magda that you just want to permanently turn off with this card. That's pretty nasty. That's probably worth a spot in some black decks, for sure. I think I'd play this just straight up in a Sararak, for sure. Because why not? It slows the opponent down and gives you time to do your combo. And if your opponent is something like a Magda deck or a Ravenous Rats deck or whatever rats those are, like they're just done. It's game over, man. It's game over. So that's a pretty cool addition that I didn't see. Maybe it was on the screen and I missed it. Still, Knight of Souls Betrayal gets kind of a thumbs up for me. That's a good printing. I think it'll see some sideboard play in Historic, and it can definitely see one of play in Historic Brawl. Nice job. But yeah, what do you guys think of the anthology? Are you going to buy it? Did you already buy it? Are you playing it? What's good? Tell your boy. Holla at your boy. Will I play Historic in the future? You'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I will see you in the next video. You're cool.